Guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here with Evan Brand. We are super stoked to chat about skin and histamine. We're going to talk about all things skin and histamine and natural ways you can improve your skin and environmentally not get triggered. Evan, how we doing, man?
Oh, doing pretty good, except I had this mosquito bite this morning on my thumb and it was itching. And I thought, okay, we got to talk histamine and skin because, believe it or not, well, I think people know this, but maybe some don't. Mosquitoes can still trigger a histamine response. Even if it's not a bee sting, you can
Hmm.
still get this itching response from it. And so I took a histamine mast cell support, which is like a blend of quercetin and guduci and perea leaf and some of these other herbal mast cell stabilizers, and it calmed it down. And so I also could have taken homeopathic ledum, which is for insect bites. I think everyone should have homeopathic ledum, Ledum, on hand. Or I could have even done the histaminium hydrochloricum, that histamine reducing homeopathic remedy. I was not an expert at homeopathy, but of course, as you and I know, with kids bringing stuff home from
Yep.
school, I started diving into homeopathy, and it can be an incredible tool for stuff like this. Now, it's not root cause, still have a mosquito bite, but it's a great way to tamp things down. And I'd say 3 out of 5 people you and I work with clinically. So, folks that are new to the show, we're functional medicine providers. We work worldwide with people helping resolve their issues by running functional medicine lab testing that we send to your door. And then we jump on a call, we review those labs, and then we make a protocol. So, that's what we do. And in the middle of all that, you and I see a lot of skin issues that are really linked into gut and histamine. So, we're going to break some of that down.
Totally. So, a couple things out of the gate. We could talk about some environmental things like bites and things like that. We have eczema. We have kind of things that are more autoimmune as well. There's a big impact on food and gut permeability and gut bacteria. But some topical things, you could take a penny and you could put it right on top of a skin of a mosquito bite because pennies, even though people think they're copper, they're actually zinc coated. And so the zinc on the outside of a penny can actually be very calming on that mosquito bite. Second thing, my favorite thing is witch hazel, and you want to get alcohol free and just you want the pure astringent. You don't want witch hazel toner. You want pure witch hazel, alcohol free, organic. And that is the best thing for any itch or any bite. It's anti inflammatory, it's also anti itch, and it does help with kind of the inflammation as a whole and promotes healing as well. So, love me some witch hazel. Third thing, which is going to be good just for the itch, is going to be rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. That's also very good for just knocking down the itch. My favorite is witch hazel though, because it has dual purpose on the inflammatory side and the healing side.
Yeah, I recommend witch hazel for hemorrhoids too. It's been pretty
Yep.
helpful for that.
Yeah, you just dab some on a cotton ball and then just, dab that in there. And then also, if you have hemorrhoids, the root cause of hemorrhoids is usually that bearing down and just kind of the hemorrhoidal veins get inflamed. And also, if you have excessive wiping, a good bidet. We talked about bidets pre-show. Bidets can be very helpful for just decreasing the friction on the wiping because you're just having a water stream cleaning your tush. And so that's a good option as well for decreasing inflammation that way as well.
I don't think we've done a hemorrhoid show. Maybe we should do
Yeah.
that. But
Yep.
on the conversation of histamine, what I was saying is a lot of people you and I see clinically have skin issues. And the cool thing is we often improve skin issues by fixing other things, meaning
Hmm.
we'll listen and we'll say, okay, I hear you on the skin issue. However, your labs reveal you have these two parasites, you have H.
Yep.
pylori, you have these histamine producing bacteria. See, there's a lot of dysbiosis in the gut that we talk about, but most people don't realize that you could be literally a histamine factory internally because of the
Bingo.
dysbiosis.
Yeah, you mentioned that. We know Pseudomonas, we know Klebsiella, we know Citrobacter, right? I had a conversation with one of the lead lab techs over at GIMAP, Diagnostic Solution Laboratory. They talked about the big bacteria associated with histamine production. That's going to be your Klebsiella, your Pseudomonas, your Citrobacter. So you have this endogenous histamine, right? And then you have exogenous, right? That's coming from outside. So that's going to be all of the junk in your environment, whether it's pollens or danders or weeds or seeds or even molds, right? And so if we can make your inside of your house pristine, that's going to be key. So having a really good higher quality HEPA filter with some kind of a VOC filter on it to really knock down those internal antigens, histamines, that's going to be helpful. And then like you said, you got to go inside to get the endogenous. Endogenous is what your body's making. Exogenous is what's coming from the environment outside in.
Yeah, and then throw in the dietary histamine component as well. So at my worst, I remember eating an
Huge.
avocado.
Yes.
I had a terrible headache from an avocado and I thought, what the hell? And it turned out to be histamine related. So I cut it out for a while,
Mhm.
started working on my gut, and it improved. And if people haven't
Bingo.
heard my story, it was all mold. Mold was the big driver of it. Now,
Yep.
Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, some of these tick-borne infections, I've seen those as a massive driver of histamine intolerance and mast cell activation as well. But I think mold is really one of the bigger ones. And of course, we know mold increases dysbiosis in the gut. So these are some of the big things you need to be looking at if you're someone who's listening. If maybe you're stuck on Claritin or Zyrtec or some other allergy med,
Correct.
your ENT is not going to talk to you about this stuff.
Exactly. And so when it comes down to the gut bacteria, like you mentioned, that gut bacteria is going to obviously drive histamine. And then you have the exogenous stuff from the environment. And then the food stuff could be just enough to put you over the top with your histamine bucket. Where maybe if the gut was better or the environment was better, that wouldn't be a thing. You wouldn't have to be that strict to cut out citrus or to cut out bacon or those kind of things. But when the histamine bucket's full, it's good to pull out as many variables as possible. Would you agree?
Definitely like corn, blue corn chips and salsa.
Yep.
Pretty delicious, but man, that's like a histamine bomb. So if you're reacting to something like that, it's wise to lower the load. You can take things like DAO, the enzyme that your body naturally produces to break down dietary histamine. However, that is typically just a crutch. I mean, it's not going to get you out of the woods here if you have an internal problem going on, like mold driving the histamine.
Yeah, most people they are using things like DAO or quercetin or bromelain or N-acetylcysteine, and those are great too. I like them because the typical H1, H2 blockers, whether it's Allegra, Singulair, Zyrtec, they're going to have a lot of side effects, potentially a brain fog or other types of fatigue issues as well. So I'd rather use something natural. Again, if I recommend those things, I'm always trying to fix the gut as well. There are some people that just have had allergies for so long and maybe their immune system's a little bit overly heightened, and that's where we fix the gut. But it's good to use these things over a medication. And then, like Evan talked about earlier, we're going to recommend a really good quality air filter, whether it's the Air Doctor or an Austin Air or an IQ Air, something to get the overall load of what's in the air down. So those are all a couple of really big things. Again, conventional medicine, like on the skin side, because we kind of have histamine topical with like urticaria, hives, rashes, eczema. The topical stuff that's typically recommended is going to be usually a corticosteroid, or on the natural side, maybe they'll recommend like calendula or something. And then we'll do like some of the witch hazel, some of those things to help. Typical conventional medicine will do corticosteroids. They may even do like immunosuppressant medications like Elidel, tacrolimus, those kind of things to kind of calm the immune system down. But you got to get to the root. So think about what's driving it from a root immune system kind of cause perspective.
Well, think about people that go in for like a dental procedure and they get
Mhm.
antibiotics. Then they have some dysbiosis, some kind of
Bingo.
relapse with their gut. Now all of a sudden they've got histamine problems. Or maybe you get a tick bite, or maybe you move into a new home or a condo or an apartment, and all of a sudden. So I really encourage you, if you're looking at yourself and your story, try to plot the timeline. Like, hey, after I
Bingo.
moved into this new place, everything fell apart with my allergies. Well, why the hell didn't you have allergies before? Now you do as soon as you move in. Well, I would investigate that environment. Something with your environment changed.
100%. The environment's big. Also, people that just go and get surgery. We talked about your wife earlier. Just the anesthesia that's given can have negative impacts on the microbiome. So, even if you didn't get antibiotics, but you got a procedure done, you should be on some good probiotics for at least a month or two afterwards, just to make sure that you don't have this nasty rebound due to the anesthesia.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly you can get derailed by accident. It's not like they're intentionally wanting to hurt
Mhm.
your gut and create histamine intolerance when you go to the dentist and I don't know, let's say you get some tooth extraction or some deep cleaning and they send you home with an antibiotic. They don't know they're setting you up for histamine intolerance. They're just not thinking like that. They're thinking, "Hey, I don't want an infection going into the blood." And that's their primary goal. So,
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And so we talked about just the immune system, right? Most allergies, whether it's skin, whether it's topical, is just an overactive, or I should say, a very sensitive immune system. And we know 80% of your immune system is in the galt, in the malt. Galt being gastric associated lymphoid tissue, that's your stomach. And then your malt, mucosal associated lymphoid tissue, that's your small intestine. And so we know 80% of your immune cells are there. So if we have inflammatory foods coming in, that's a problem. Sometimes your diet can be great and it's just the higher histamine. It could be the bacon, it could be some of the citrus foods, right? That could be problematic when your bucket's already full. Sometimes it's just not being able to digest your foods, not having enough acid because you're stressed, or enzymes because you're stressed, or because you have a lot of low bile salts. Those are all big deals. Plus, when you have low hydrochloric acid, that actually disinfects and makes it harder for bacteria to grow in your stomach. So just the idea of having low stomach acid, not having enough, that can make the bugs actually grow.
Makes sense. So in the case of H. pylori, which we see often, it's 51% of the population, give or take, has it. When it becomes too high, it damages parietal cells, reduces stomach acid. You're saying that would also be a way that you could be set up for this histamine intolerance because of the hypochlorhydria.
Yeah, and then also the parietal cells that make stomach acid are the same cells that make intrinsic factor, which help you absorb B12. Right? It's a relay race. It hands the baton off in in the stomach for the parietal cells for the intrinsic factor, and that baton gets reabsorbed in the ileum at the end of the small intestine. So if you don't have that, if you don't hand the baton off with the intrinsic factor in the stomach, then you're not going to absorb that B12 at the end of the intestinal tract.
I think we should paint the picture of what does this person look like, meaning,
Yeah.
okay, that they have some skin issues, they have some histamine problems, but what else do they have? I want to throw a couple other symptoms into the mix that you may see because people, I don't think they don't make the connection between the mood and the histamine. So
Yep.
histamine can act like a neurotransmitter, right? So you may see
Yep.
irritability, anxiety, other like
Yep.
neuropsychiatric problems. What about fatigue? What about,
Brain fog.
yeah, brain
Brain
fog,
fog.
depression?
Yep. There's
How
a
would
strong
you
mood connection.
how would you say that people would manifest if they have a histamine problem in terms of like energy, motivation? Do you see a role there or an effect there?
Yeah, I mean, there can definitely be the energy, the mood stuff. Obviously, we have like the low hanging fruit of like urticaria, hives, itchy. Maybe, we have allergic shiners because we have a lot of lymphatic pooling underneath the eyes. We have those big kind of bags under their eyes. It could be all of those different things. It could be excess itching, scratchy, perioral dermatitis with excess histamine. So women are notorious for having it because they have higher levels of estrogen a lot of times, if they have estrogen dominance, or if they're on birth control pills, that can throw off the immune system and make them a little bit more sensitive. And then they can develop other types of dermatitis issues due to their hormone imbalances. So that can throw things off too.
Okay, so now you're talking the estrogen histamine connection.
Bingo. Yep, that can play a major role.
Okay, and then what about issues with progesterone? Because I've noticed when I've done topical progesterone, it's helped reduce histamine symptoms.
Well, progesterone, it can go downstream into cortisol. So progesterone is actually very anti-inflammatory. And so a lot of times, people that have low progesterone, a lot of times they're pulling that progesterone downstream to make more cortisol because they're inflamed. But that when that progesterone drops, that further increases the estrogen dominance, which can throw off your immune system. So that's why progesterone is super helpful for the immune, but it's also a GABA chloride channel opener. So it gets the GABA into the brain and really helps with relaxation and sleep. So you may find that higher histamine, brain fog, irritability, mood stuff as well, and that progesterone is playing a role in it.
Yep. Okay. Sex drive, I've seen that to be affected as well in this whole
Yep.
histamine conversation. Some people, they may notice increased sex drive. Some people, it crashes and they're flatlined. Honestly, I haven't seen one way or the other.
With
It's
progesterone,
no with histamine.
hmm yeah, yeah, it can be either one. Some people, if they have a lot of insulin resistance, you can get a little bit of a bump in your androgens as a female, but that's also going to drive infertility. It can drive excess hair growth and acne, but you may get a little bump in libido as well. It's not necessarily good because it's throwing off your other hormones at expense.
Okay, so
So
let's
that's
talk
true.
about where should someone start if they have this problem, any of these issues. Maybe they take a hot shower and they get itchy, and then they eat something they think is affecting them, and then they think they're reacting to the pine pollen, and they've got some diarrhea. Where do we start with these people from a functional perspective?
I think from a functional perspective, it's always going to be food and environment, right? So obviously, like food makes is the biggest input, but it requires some changes. It's actually easier just to probably get a really good air filter because then it's just like I make the purchase, I get it, I set it up, I put it on, and it's one and done. There's no real habit change; it's just on. So I think a good air filter is good. Doing some sinus flushing with some saline to clean out the allergens because you go outside, you're like, oh, I'm inside, I got my air filter on, but you still got this colony of mold and antigens from outside in your nose. And so you're like, oh, this air's all clean, but get that junk up there, get it cleaned out. So we'll use like some xylitol, I like the Xlear Max is a good one if you're really sensitive because it has aloe and some capsicum, which is a homeopathic anti-inflammatory. Or I'll do the Rescue, which breaks down those mold biofilms or antigen biofilms, and then you flush it out with some saline, and then you can get it out. Now you're breathing nice, clean air. That's an easy, simple one. And then the next thing is food. So paleo autoimmune, I think, is a good one. And then we can be very histamine aware. Avocados, pork, making sure meat's not old, citrus, those kind of things are good to be aware of.
Yep. And then testing wise, we obviously want to look at the stool. You and I talked about the histamine producing bacteria. So we need to investigate, look at the dysbiosis. And it's actually a beautiful thing to see this on paper. So people that have suffered for a while, 20 years or whatever, they're stuck on and off allergy meds. It's amazing to be able to show them, hey, look, you've got 6 different species of bacteria that are just through the roof. So we're going to address that dysbiosis with the help of the test to tell us where we need to look and what we need to use to fix it. And we do not prescribe drugs. So we're going to hit this from a natural medicine perspective. We're going to use different natural herbal antimicrobials. There could be parasites as well. There could be the H. pylori, which we may put in its own category. There could be Clostridia. I would say we need to do an oat test too, because now we're going to look
Yep.
at the neurotransmitters and say, okay, well, is all this anxiety and irritability coming from the histamine issue and your gut issue and your skin, or is it his own brain chemistry problem that we can fix as well?
100%. Now, you've always talked about like the colonized mold from the environment kind of working its way into the gut. I know you use a lot of oat testing, which I do as well from Great Plain Labs to assess that higher level of aspergillus or fusobacterium and is it colonizing. Speak a little bit more about how that outside environment gets in the gut and then how it grows. And then can we do gut protocols to knock that down or do we have to address the out? Like, how do you address it holistically if it's outside coming in and impacting the gut?
Yeah. So the the two options that can happen for mold toxicity
Yeah,
is you can become like a mycotoxin reservoir where you're simply just storing the mold toxin that you've breathed in. So you're living,
that's good.
working, sleeping in a water damaged building, you breathe in these mold farts, those are
Yep.
mycotoxins, they get
Yep.
stored in you. But when you do your oat test, page 1, you don't see any overgrowth there. Numbers 1 through 9 is the fungal category. If that all looks normal, but we see mycotoxins in the urine, we'll say, okay, you just have mold toxicity, but you're not colonized. But most of the time, it's both, especially in a
You're not
chronically
storing
ill.
it in your gut, it's just from the outside coming in, you're not storing it.
Well, it could
Or
be
it's not colonized
yeah, it could be stored, but it may not be actively growing.
in
Whereas
your gut.
yeah, whereas when you see the active growth, that would be like furan carbonyl glycine. There's like 3 or 4
Yep.
different ones that'll
Yep.
say aspergillus or fusarium. And
Yep.
truthfully, I think this testing still has a long way to go. I think we're going to find the ability to test way more molds because right now all we can see is aspergillus, which is common, but there's tons of other molds that I think people could be battling, and we're not actually testing for them. So testing's not perfect, I will admit, but if we do see the growth, then we'll say, hey, you're actually a mold factory, more accurately, a mycotoxin factory. You're now generating mycotoxins from this active growth, meaning you move out of that moldy house. Well, you could take the mold with you. And so that's where using, to answer your question, that's where using the rescue, the nasal spray is great. But
Yep.
then the same gut protocol will fix that because, as you know, a lot of the herbs we use for bacteria are also antifungal as well. A lot of blends that you and I formulated, we have antifungals built into those. So really, it doesn't change protocol too much. We're probably hitting
Right.
several things at once. We may be killing mold and killing candida and killing bacteria all in one fell swoop. And if you look into the literature on this, you can get something called an aspergilloma, where you can literally have like a ball of mold growing in the lungs. Now,
Mm.
I don't know if that's like nebulized antifungals or what. That's a little out of my
Right.
wheelhouse. I don't know much about
Yeah.
lung growth of mold, but we can say for sure that where we're putting in oral antifungals, oral antimicrobials, we look at the oat and guess what? The retest looks beautiful. So we know it's working. And then we match it to their symptoms and they say, hey, look, I don't have sinus anymore. I don't have histamine anymore. I don't have insomnia or depression anymore. It's all cleared up. So I think what we're doing is working great.
Absolutely. And also there's, Marcons as well, like methicillin resistant kind of staph coagulase in the nose. And that's where I'll add a drop or two of betadine iodine because that's shown to be very helpful against methicillin resistant bugs in the nose. And it's also a biofilm buster as well. And then I'm not sure, I think you do it as well, but we add biofilms to a lot of our protocols, whether it's the ginger tea, whether it's silver, whether it's NAC. And NAC is great because it can help with glutathione and help with detoxification while it helps with the gut, while it also helps improve lung health and breaks up mucus. And then also like systemic enzymes, whether it's pancreatic enzymes or serpeptidase or lumbrokinase or yeah, those are probably the good ones out of the gate.
I was actually reading about lumbrokinase this morning. Dr. Mercola had emailed about it. He had an article about aspirin and how much it could have saved people from
Oh yeah, the
blood
C word.
clots and yeah, of
Yeah,
course. And so anyway, he talked about how he had a wasp sting and he decided to go. I think he said he took 15 lumbrokinase, which sounds like too many to me, but he
yeah.
took like 15 lumbrokinase and somehow it healed him from the wasp sting because it didn't have enough time to coagulate and the fibrin didn't form and it was this whole explanation he gave and I was like that's cool. So even lumbrokinase may help or any of these systemic enzymes may help for bug bites. So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I like Wolbenzyme too because it's a pancreatic enzyme at high dose, and these type of things are wonderful on an empty stomach. They can really go in and help with thinning out blood, helping to break down interleukins and cytokines and all these inflammatory compounds that could be in the bloodstream. So I like that.
I take a blend every day of enzymes just because everything I've been through, I think I still need it. So uh, before breakfast, I'll pop a blend with the. Also, it's got a little bit of ginger in there too, and it helps. Yeah, I notice a difference in my brain too. My mental clarity is better when I'm on the enzymes.
Oh yeah, it's gonna help with blood flow across the board, whether it's blood flow to your private parts, your brain, to your muscles. It's gonna help with blood flow everywhere. That which is great. So that's excellent.
All right,
Very
so
good.
we hit the oat, we hit the stool. Oftentimes, I'm going to run like a Lyme co-infection panel as well, just
Yep.
to make sure we turn over all the rocks. I mean, truthfully, blood testing, I know some of like the shoemaker trained medical doctors, they'll run blood and they'll look at TGF beta 1 and some of these other
Yep.
like mold, biotoxin, illness blood markers. But to be honest, it really doesn't change the game plan or protocol for me
No,
much.
doesn't change it much. And then, you can run like serum tryptase or like, whole blood cell, like histamine. Like maybe those are good if someone has a lot of histamine symptoms and you just want a baseline to see where they're at. So then you can come back and over time maybe watch it go down. But for me, it doesn't change treatment. So it's more just a marker of, hey, are things improving? It's an extra yardstick to compare things to. But most of the times that these tests cost hundreds of dollars, usually the best yardstick is, hey doc, I'm feeling better, right? I'm feeling better. I'm improving. And then we test the root causes, which are the bacteria, the gut issues, the hormones. Person in the chat says, hey, when my cortisol is low, I have more issues to a lot of skin stuff. And so that's why that low cortisol, looking at the adrenals, can be helpful because if that cortisol is super low, you may not have that internal cortisol to deal with the inflammation on the skin. So getting the adrenals looked at and addressing the low cortisol internally is important because if not, they're just going to recommend cortisol on the skin issues.
Yeah, the adrenal piece is awesome to look at. And one other thing about blood, it's not very fun to go and sit at LabCorp request for however long and you have to get poked. I mean, it's not a big deal. Like I ran blood a few months ago and it wasn't a big deal, but I thought, wow, how inconvenient is I didn't make an appointment. I probably should have, but I sat in the waiting room for like an hour. Luckily, I didn't have anything to do that day, but I just sat there and watched everybody complain. And I looked at all these people. They're all overweight. They all just look terribly unhealthy. My doctor sent me in here for this. And it's like you feel so bad for these people. It's hard for me not to want to intervene and like talk about organic acids testing. Like, hey, we like I want to just pass out test kits
I
in the waiting room because I'm like these poor
know.
guys. They're getting conventional blood work. They're never going to get to their to their root cause. Have you seen that meme online? It shows a person in a casket and it says your
Oh
labs
my
are
god.
fine or something like that.
Oh yeah,
And they're in the casket and the doctor's
yeah.
looking at them and says your labs are fine. So uh, long story short, yes, blood can be helpful. Like if you're looking at cancer markers and you're working with maybe a holistic oncologist and you're tracking CA 125 and 19 and all these
Yeah.
other cancer stuff, like that's not my expertise. But what I will say is that blood can be a tool, but I often find that it's the only tool that's used. And as you know, because you and I've looked at thousands of blood panels, most blood panels suck and they don't have enough data on them unless we're putting a custom panel together.
Yeah, I mean, you can glean some information and say, okay, let's run this test over here to get more insight. Or if you see, low vitamin D or you have thyroid issues, those are going to be good for that. It's going to be good, like, homocysteine's a good marker. Methylmalonic acid's a good marker. We got it in organic acid testing as well. Some of the coagulation, D-dimer is pretty good. Um, you can get some good insights in anemias or low iron. But yeah, like it's good to have that. Plus, okay, why is the iron low? Oh, you have a gut absorption issue. So a lot of times it still requires you to like, that's the platform to now recommend other things based on that data.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For
Well,
sure.
that's good. I mean, I think we hit everything pretty well. Anything else you want to highlight before we wrap things up?
I think we've done a good job. I'll just send people back to the websites if they want further information. If you want to reach out, we do work worldwide. We send these functional labs to your door. You don't have to go sit in the waiting room for an hour. We send the stuff to your home. It's very convenient. These are great tests. And just because it's convenient doesn't mean it's not good. These are the best tests out there. Where we're looking into 75 biomarkers just on the organic acids alone. You combine that with the stool and potentially with other urine or hormone panels, we're looking at in the ballpark of 150 different biomarkers, bacteria, viruses, pathogens, parasites, gut inflammation markers, intestinal bleeding markers, gallbladder
Yep.
issues we can detect,
Hmm.
fat
Steatocrit.
malabsorption,
Yep.
yeah, nutrient deficiencies, amino acid problems, brain chemistry problems. So it's truly amazing what we've been able to do. And this is far cheaper than I've seen people go to the Amen clinic and they go spend $3,000 on a spec scan
Skin.
and they're not happy with the results.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I've seen it and I like what we do better. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach out clinically, you can get help from Dr. J. That's Dr. Justin Marcagiani. That is at justinhealth.com, justinhealth.com. He's amazing. Or if you want to go to me, Evan, evanbrand.com. We're happy to help you guys. We love what we do. We're really blessed to be able to find answers for you all because it's helped us with our own family and we love changing lives. So we'd be happy to help.
I love it. And, we're trying to give actionable, real information, try to get real data that actually changes the course of treatment. And then you were talking about a couple of things. Maybe another good marker to look at for some of these really histamine sensitive people would even be zonulin, right? A gut permeability marker, because the more gut permeability you have, more that immune system could be hyperactive. But again, that's another marker where it's like, well, what do you do with that marker? It's still, you still got to look upstream at all the things we just mentioned. So we want to just give you guys real information that's actionable so you guys can get the data and then figure out what the next steps are to kind of really get to the root cause of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having elevated zonulin, maybe that would make you throw in like some gut support sooner, like some
Yep.
DGL or some zinc carnosine or something like that. Maybe you throw that in sooner, but at the end of the day, you're going to think, okay, well, why? What the heck? So now you're back to like bugs again or
Yep.
toxins.
Got to get to the root. I totally agree. Well, Evan, great podcast, man. We'll do this again real soon. We'll put links down below where you guys can reach out to us all. And then also we have review links as well. We love to get some reviews here. evanbrand.com/iTunes, justinhealth.com/iTunes. Love the review. Appreciate it, you guys. And make sure you share it with family or friends. We want to be able to get the word out and put the power back in your hands to take control of your health. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Evan.
Amen. Take care.
Peace. Bye.
Bye bye.